Yo, what's going on, everybody? You are watching Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, I want to dive into 3 smart hires that Kevin O'Connell made to his staff over the weekend, and also talk about one hire, which I think was an absolute joke of a move. So we'll dive into it all here. Let's kick it to Ian Rappaport as he tweeted this out on Saturday, saying Kevin O'Connell continues to remodel his staff, adding former Dolphins offensive coordinator Frank Smith as assistant head coach and Keith Carter as offensive line coach per him and Tom Pelissero. So the Vikings offensive coaching staff now looking like this. Offensive line coach, you go from Chris Cupper. Now you have Keith Carter getting that nod, and now your assistant head coach, which actually did not go to Brian Flores, goes to Frank Smith. I thought a part of Brian Flores' contract would have been like, hey, we'll make you the highest paid coordinator in the NFL. Also, we'll give you the assistant head coach title. That didn't end up being the case, and also reports are coming out that the Vikings did make Flores the highest paid coordinator in NFL history. So, again, credit to the Wolves here. But let's start off with the offensive line coach position. And I truly can't believe that the Vikings promoted Keith Carter. I didn't think it was possible to downgrade from Chris Cupper, but like you just think about the process of this, where it's like, okay, the Vikings offensive line has had talent over the last couple of years. They haven't been able to develop it. So now you're just going to promote the assistant offensive line coach and make him the offensive line coach, thinking that that is going to make the difference, because we have seen Garrett Bradbury leave the Vikings, have a good year. Ezra Cleveland, Ed Ingram, I think, is the best example of that, where the Vikings spent a second-round pick on him, had to trade him for a 6th-round pick years later. Then he goes to the Houston Texans, one of the best guards in the National Football League, and you promote this guy? I mean, I am hopefully going to be wrong about Keith Carter, finally getting that nod, but it's like he was the assistant offensive line coach. Now you make him the offensive line coach. I wish the Vikings would have made an outside hire, go get somebody different. He was the run game coordinator with the Jets and their offensive line coach back in 2023 to 2024. Was with the Tennessee Titans, had some good offensive lines there from 2018 to 2022. But he was assistant offensive line coach back in 2015 to 2017 with the Atlanta Falcons. So I just think it's kind of a joke. I would have gone the outside-the-box hire here, bring in somebody else from a different organization, just get some new blood at the offensive line coaching spot, because clearly with what the Vikings have had over the last couple of seasons with Cupper and now Keith Carter, it just hasn't been good enough. However, adding Frank Smith, absolute rocket hire. This was an elite pickup by the Minnesota Vikings. I will give all credit to Kevin O'Connell on this one, giving him the assistant head coach title here in Minnesota. Great pickup. Now, this guy has been absolutely fantastic, and he will also help out with the offensive line position, as back in 2021, he was with the Los Angeles Chargers as their offensive line coach and the run game coordinator. They had not that much talent on that offensive line, but they actually ranked top 10 according to PFF that season. He was a tight ends coach with the Bears when he started his coaching career in 2015, went to the Las Vegas Raiders, and then the past 3 seasons, he was an offensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins. Why do I love this? Because you would have to assume Frank Smith is going to help out the Vikings run game a ton. Because Mike McDaniel, he was a fantastic, at least running offensive coordinator, offensive head coach for Miami. They've always had very good run games, and I think Frank Smith obviously had a huge say in what they were trying to accomplish offensively there. So maybe this is finally like a change for Kevin O'Connell, where this guy hasn't been that committed to the run. Obviously, KOC is a genius pass game concepts guy, but he obviously does not have the the running game and the running scheme to be consistent on the ground. So hopefully adding Frank Smith will definitely change that. But I think this is a home run hire. And I think this will maybe mean also maybe KOC changes his tendencies. Maybe he's not solely, committed on throwing the football every single down. It feels like sometimes maybe he'll finally learn to get more downhill, make his quarterback's life a whole lot easier, and get that young QB, whoever it may be, J.J. McCarthy, whoever, Kyler Murray, who knows who's going to be quarterback one next season. Just make their life easier and get them a running game. Now, let me ask you guys this. Which player made you fall in love with the Minnesota Vikings? Love getting your insight on these types of questions. If I had to answer this, it would probably be a combination of like Harrison Smith, Adrian Peterson, even a guy like Percy Harvin back in the day. Just loved watching him. Sidney Rice was like a random wide receiver I'll forever love. But especially for your older Vikings fans watching today's show, you guys let me know your thoughts. Which player made you fall in love with the Minnesota Vikings? Can't wait to hop down in the comment section and check out what you guys have to say. All right, another great pickup for the Vikings coaching staff is Gerald Alexander, formerly with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Vikings are hiring him to be their new defensive pass game coordinator and DBs coach. Obviously, we know with Durante Jones, who used to man that position for the Vikings defense, took the defensive coordinator job with the Washington Commanders. I think this is a hell of a replacement, though. This guy, he has been all over. Back with the Raiders, he was their safeties coach in 2024. He was originally with the Steelers in 22 and 23 as their assistant DBs coach. Went to the Raiders, and then the Steelers brought him back in 2025 as their DBs coach. But yeah, he's a secondary mastermind, and he's going to help be the next guy up next to Brian Flores manning this defense. But I also found this quote from when he was back with the Las Vegas Raiders. It was absolutely awesome. He said, "The safeties have always been primary communicators in a lot of defenses I've experienced because they have the most depth. They're the ones that are going to understand adjustments." And obviously, we know with how Brian Flores likes to use his safeties at the line of scrimmage. Like, they got to do a multitude of different things. Like, it does make a lot of sense, bringing this guy in. Like, he understands, like, a guy like Josh Metellus, they're going to be trying to look to replace a guy like Harrison Smith. Like, maybe a guy like Theo Jackson has a good year. Maybe the Vikings do bring in more talent in free agency at the safety position. But also, I love at the Steelers, they weren't happy about losing Alexander. I mean, I was on Twitter. Steelers fans were kind of crashing out over this, so it's always a good telling sign. Like, another team's fan base sees them lose a coach, and they're upset about it. Probably makes you feel good being a Vikings fan knowing that. But also, I do think the Vikings, speaking about the safety position, I think they're going to draft a safety early in this year's draft. Probably would assume, I mean, if not round one, for sure at least round two. And you got to think about a guy like potentially, the safety from Toledo, sleeping on his name right now. Now, probably not going to be able to get Caleb Downs. Maybe get a guy like Dylan Thieneman in the second round, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I do think the Vikings will take a safety in possibly round one, if not round two. They see more talent on that back end of the defense, and I think it'll be a good call there. But you guys let me know. If you guys want the Vikings to draft a safety in round one, go down there, hit that thumbs up icon for us. But if you guys don't, and you guys want them to draft another position, comment why down below. Here, see what you guys got to say. I'll talk about another hire the Vikings made here in just a second, but let me tell you about today's presenting sponsor. That is Factor Meals. And if you guys head to factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off and use promo code VikingsChat50 off, we'll hook you guys up with 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Now, if you want to eat better but you have zero time and zero energy to make it happen, Factor doesn't ask you to meal prep or follow recipes. It just removes the entire problem. 2 minutes, real food, done. And you're not failing at healthy eating. You're failing at having 3 extra hours every night. Factor is already made by chefs, designed by dietitians, and delivered to your door. You heat it for 2 minutes and eat. It's that simple. Now, here covering the Minnesota Vikings, living a busy lifestyle. Sometimes I don't want to dedicate all that time to cooking and making a healthy meal, but that's where Factor has completely eliminated that problem for me. I also love that they have no refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, and no refined seed oils as well. They also have 100 rotating weekly meals, including high-protein options, calorie-smart, GLP-1 support, and also ready-to-eat salads. It's always fresh, never frozen, ready in 2 minutes, and no prep, no cleanup, no mental loads. I'll have this link for you guys in the comments section and description of today's show, but head to factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off and use promo code VikingsChat50 off to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. This offer is only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Make healthier eating easy with Factor. All right, I'm curious if you guys remember this name here. Ryan Nielsen. The Vikings are hiring him to be their defensive run game coordinator and their defensive line coach. But if you guys remember, Ryan Nielsen was actually a guy back when he was leaving the New Orleans Saints in 2022. I thought there was a chance he was going to be the Vikings defensive coordinator. They obviously ended up getting Brian Flores. That was a home run hire, but I remember looking into Nielsen a lot. This guy's awesome. I think this is an elite pickup for this defensive staff. And with Gerald Alexander, Brian Flores, now Ryan Nielsen, I mean, the Vikings defensively, like, we've already been saying it, but you can pencil them in to be a top 5 unit this upcoming season. So we start off with the Saints, their assistant head coach, defensive line coach. Once the Atlanta Falcons was their defensive coordinator. Then he went to the Jacksonville Jaguars, was their defensive coordinator, and then this past year was a senior defensive assistant coach with the Buffalo Bills. So now he comes on over to Minnesota, helps out in the run game, helps out with the defensive line. And overall, I think Kevin O'Connell is putting together a just tremendous staff. Obviously I'm very hypercritical of the Vikings head coach, but I think what he has done this offseason has been really special. You're able to keep Brian Flores. You're able to bring in, a guy like Ryan Nielsen, Gerald Alexander, a Frank Smith. Now, do I necessarily love Keith Carter getting the promotion? No, not necessarily, but I still think Frank Smith being there should help out the offensive line developing at least a little bit. But I will say, I mean, the pressure's on this season. Like, I'm sure KOC and Flores, they're probably saying to themselves, where it's like, hey, we got to do whatever we can to get the most out of this team. Like, they understand if they don't go to the playoffs, if they don't possibly win a playoff game, like, for sure, Kevin O'Connell, I bet you he might lose his job. I doubt Brian Flores would. Also, I wonder, like, in this hypothetical world, what if the Vikings, like, same situation as this past year? It's like the Vikings have an elite defense. Offense still struggles. Kevin O'Connell, let's just say he gets fired. I still wonder if, like, would they just easily promote Brian Flores? I have my doubts there, just knowing how this Vikings ownership group kind of works, but also they're paying Flores a lot of money, which I didn't think they would, so maybe they prove me wrong there again. But also, I think it's clear that, like, Flores and Kevin O'Connell are in full control here. Like, they're going to be the ones making personnel decisions. They're going to be the ones that are dictating this draft. Like, the guys who are getting restructured, the trade candidates this offseason, everything will run through Kevin O'Connell and Flores. And if you just had the power rank, like, who's in control, it's Kevin O'Connell 1, it's Brian Flores 2, probably ownership then comes in at 3, and then the rest of the front office members at number 4. But, I mean, they're in full control. This is their show. They're going to live and die on their own decisions this entire year, and it kind of is exciting as a fan because if the Vikings are successful this season, it will be because of the coaching staff. Like, it will be because of Kevin O'Connell. But also, if they aren't successful this season, it will be because of the coaching staff. That's why it is an exciting time to be a fan, because if the Vikings come out this next season and they're 13-4, maybe they win a playoff game, like Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores, it would be one of the best coaching jobs we have seen in the NFL over the last couple of years. But also the same can be said if they come out and they're 5-12 and maybe KOC can't get his offense together, like, they will get most of the blame, because clearly this ownership group put a lot of faith in 2 guys, Kevin O'Connell, Brian Flores, and hoping that they can get it done. And you know what? I got faith in them. Who knows if this offense can finally get it together. That's why I still expect the Vikings to be aggressive at the quarterback position this offseason. I really have my doubts that it will be J.J. McCarthy, but hey, if this team's successful, the coaching staff will get a whole lot of praise and a whole lot of love, not only from me here on the channel, but from a bunch of people in the NFL. But if you guys made it to the end of today's show, hit me with those skulls down below in the comments section. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in, and we'll get on out of here. As always, go Vikes.